What to the slave is the 4th of July? Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains heavy and grievous yesterday are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee sounds that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children of sorrow this day, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. To forget our ancestors is to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason, most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world. My subject then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view. Standing there, identified with the American bondsman, making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. As quoted from Frederick Douglass, and I will let someone explain a little bit more about this speech he gave, what year he gave it, and some of the reasons why he wants us to remember the 4th of July. What are we smiling and laughing about? We didn't get freed. We're not free now. But sometimes we can't see that the chains are no longer on your arms, on your legs, or your neck. They're around your mind.
Down.
It has a mistake in it. Those were the words.
July 4th, 1776, the day America declared its independence from Britain. Fireworks, freedom, and all men are created equal, right? But what about black people? Where were they on that historic day? The truth might shock you, and it definitely didn't make it into your history books. While the Founding Fathers signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, about 500,000 black people were living in the colonies. An estimated 90% of them were enslaved, working under brutal conditions, owned like property. They weren't celebrating freedom. They were plowing fields, cooking meals, building homes, and raising white children, all while being bought, sold, beaten, and separated from their families. Thomas Jefferson, the man who wrote "All men are created equal," enslaved more than 600 people over his lifetime. Even on the day he signed that sacred document, enslaved Africans were serving him in his home. When the colonists cried, "No taxation without representation," many black people were asking, what about freedom from slavery? Here's what most people don't know. Thousands of black people joined the fight for independence, but not always for the United States. In 1775, the British made a bold move. Lord Dunmore, the royal governor of Virginia, issued a proclamation. Any enslaved person who escaped from a rebel owner and joined the British Army would be granted freedom. Tens of thousands took that risk. They left plantations, dodged slave catchers, and joined the British side in hopes of finally being free. And on the flip side, about 5,000 black men fought for the American revolutionaries, including figures like Peter Salem, a formerly enslaved man who became a hero at the Battle of Bunker Hill. But unlike their white counterparts, many of these black soldiers were re-enslaved after the war or denied pensions and land. Not all black people were enslaved in 1776. A small but growing number were free, especially in the North. In cities like Philadelphia, Boston, and New York, free black communities were working as artisans, sailors, and business owners, founding churches, schools, and mutual aid societies. In fact, one of the first public critiques of American slavery came in 1774 from a group of free black men in Massachusetts who petitioned the colonial government, saying, "How can America seek liberty from Britain while holding us in chains? The Declaration of Independence says, all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Sounds beautiful, unless you were black. Those words didn't free the enslaved. They didn't protect black families. They didn't grant legal rights or dignity. And here's the thing. Many of the signers of the Declaration were enslavers. Of the 56 men who signed, at least 41 owned slaves. So while they signed a document about liberty, they were literally profiting off stolen labor at home. Black people didn't just suffer, they resisted. Ran away from plantations, joined both sides of the war to gain freedom. Started rebellions, like the 1741 slave uprising in New York, or the 1811 German Coast Rebellion in Louisiana, the largest.
Now, the rebellion in Louisiana was the largest slave revolt. And we're talking about a speech that Frederick Douglass gave on July 5th, 1852. And while Douglass employs vivid imagery and rhetorical questions to illustrate the stark contrast between the joyous festivities of the day for the enslaved, the celebration is a sham and represents a gross injustice. The patriotic fervor that permeates the day marked by celebrations and expressions of national pride only serves to highlight the deep hypocrisy of a nation that claims to uphold the values of liberty and justice while simultaneously perpetrating the injustice of slavery. Douglass, the sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, and the religious observances associated with the day come off as bombast, fraud, deception, hypocrisy. He critiques the historical narrative surrounding the American Revolution, just like history distorts world history, noting that colonists or Europeans fought for their own freedom from British tyranny and simultaneously link the futures of a system of slavery that was brutal and inhumane. Douglass challenges his audience to reflect on their own history, which we do not know, and inherent contradictions that lie within it. He implores them to recognize that at the very moment the United States is engaged in practices more shocking and barbaric than any found in the monarchies or despotisms elsewhere. In detailing the contemporary realities of the slave trade, Douglass paints a haunting picture of the internal slave market where human beings are treated as commodities, gold, sold, and traded like livestock. He denotes the future slave law, which not only criminalizes compassion and mercy towards slaves, but ensures that judges are financially incentivized to uphold a brutal system of slavery. By pointing out this deep moral corruption within the justice system. Now, he calls into question the integrity of American values and institutions, despite this powerful indictment of America and its treatment of black folks, as is today. Concludes on a note of hope, though. Asserts his belief that forces of justice and morality will inevitably lead to the downfall of slavery. This hasn't happened yet, as far as I know. This hope is not rooted in naivety, but rather in understanding of historical progress and the eventual triumph of righteousness over oppression. Now, one of the things that I will say before we leave, because the time is getting short, Douglas' eloquence, moral clarity, and profound insight into the American experience resonates powerfully, highlighting the contradictions between the nation's ideals and its actions, while also planting seeds of hope for a future free from the blight of slavery. What are you smiling at and celebrating on the 4th?